Just 1 minute ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin made a move that no one in Britain or anywhere in the West saw coming. A sudden, decisive announcement from the Kremlin has shaken the British government to its core, leaving Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his entire cabinet scrambling to respond. What began as a quiet diplomatic standoff has exploded into one of the biggest international shocks of the decade. Sources inside Moscow confirmed that Putin's decision came after weeks of secret intelligence leaks that traced back directly to the UK. In a live televised address, Putin accused the British government of covert sabotage and interference in Russian interests. A direct accusation aimed not at NATO or Washington, but personally at Starmer's office. He didn't mince words. "If London believes it can act in the shadows," Putin said coldly, "then Russia will bring everything into the light." The tone was unmistakable, icy, deliberate, and devastating. Within minutes, global news networks cut to emergency coverage. Downing Street reportedly went into lockdown. Intelligence officials rushed to brief the Prime Minister, as early reports suggested that Russia had just suspended all diplomatic communication with the UK, effective immediately. The reason? A classified cyber operation, allegedly orchestrated through British intelligence channels, that targeted Russian financial infrastructure. Moscow called it an act of hybrid aggression, and the Kremlin claimed to have indisputable proof. When journalists pressed for details, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a single cryptic statement. London played a dangerous game. Now it must face the consequences. That was enough to ignite chaos across Europe. Markets crashed, oil prices surged, and Britain suddenly found itself at the center of a geopolitical firestorm. But what stunned observers most was what happened next. Putin didn't stop at condemning the UK. He named Starmer personally, accusing him of hiding behind diplomatic smiles while authorizing hostile acts. Never in modern British history has a Russian leader singled out a sitting prime minister with such direct venom. Inside Westminster, panic spread like wildfire. Cabinet ministers held emergency meetings into the early hours of the morning. Starmer's aides were seen rushing in and out of Number 10, refusing to comment. And while the official government response was still under review, leaked messages suggested that even the Foreign Office was caught off guard, completely unprepared for Moscow's retaliation. Meanwhile, the footage of Putin's speech began circulating online. It wasn't just the words, it was the delivery. Cold, calm, unblinking, the kind of tone that made even seasoned diplomats shiver. International analysts warned that Britain's digital and energy sectors could be the next targets. Russian cyber units were reportedly mobilized for potential countermeasures, and several UK financial systems went offline temporarily. The government insisted it was routine maintenance, but insiders knew the truth. Britain was under silent cyber siege. Social media exploded. Putin visas Starmer, like Britain in shock and cyber showdown, trended within hours. Every headline screamed the same thing: Starmer blindsided by Putin's sudden move. By evening, one BBC reporter summed it up perfectly. This isn't just a diplomatic crisis. This is psychological warfare, and Starmer never saw it coming. But behind closed doors, another layer of the story was beginning to emerge, one that could explain Putin's timing, Starmer's silence, and why Britain's allies were suddenly growing uneasy. Because according to leaked NATO cables, this wasn't just retaliation, it was revenge. By dawn, Britain was in turmoil. Every newspaper headline screamed the same message: Putin strikes back, Starmer exposed. The footage of Putin's statement had gone viral, with over 80 million views in under 24 hours. But as the world tried to make sense of the chaos, something even more explosive emerged. Leaked NATO briefings revealed that British intelligence had, in fact, conducted a covert cyber sweep on Russian data networks 2 weeks earlier, without informing key allies. It was meant to be a defensive surveillance operation, but Moscow took it as a direct provocation. That's when Putin struck back, publicly, strategically, and brutally. In his second televised address, broadcast across Russia and translated worldwide. Putin announced the immediate freezing of UK-Russia trade operations, valued at over $4.5 billion annually. He called it a protective measure against deception. Within hours, energy contracts collapsed. Gas imports to the UK dropped overnight. Energy companies panicked, and Britain's already struggling economy plunged deeper into uncertainty. In Westminster, Starmer's team faced a nightmare scenario. The opposition called for an emergency parliamentary session. Critics accused Starmer of provoking an international crisis with reckless intelligence tactics. Even senior members of his own party began distancing themselves, calling the situation untenable. Meanwhile, Putin's approval ratings soared domestically. In Moscow's Red Square, crowds gathered holding signs reading, "Russia stands strong. The West cannot break us." But the damage inside Britain was catastrophic. Videos of rolling blackouts, fuel shortages, and frozen trade ports flooded social media. Public anger erupted, and Starmer's leadership came under unprecedented fire. One viral post read, "Putin plays chess. Starmer's still learning checkers." In an emergency press briefing, a visibly shaken Starmer tried to contain the fallout. "Britain will not be intimidated," he said. But his words rang hollow. He refused to deny the intelligence leaks. He refused to clarify whether the UK had interfered in Russian systems. And he refused to answer the most burning question: why now? Because reports suggested that Putin's move wasn't random. It was strategically timed to exploit Britain's growing internal divisions and its strained economy. In short, it was perfect political timing, and Starmer walked right into it. Internationally, reactions poured in. Washington expressed concern, Paris called for restraint, and Berlin quietly reminded London that unilateral intelligence operations carry consequences. Britain stood alone, isolated, embarrassed and exposed. Back home, the public mood turned from confusion to outrage. Protests broke out across London, with banners reading "Truth, not secrets," and "We deserve answers." Polls showed Starmer's approval rating had plummeted to an all-time low, and then came the final blow. Russian state media released a 30-second clip, reportedly intercepted audio, of a British diplomatic call referencing escalation pressure. While unverified, the damage was immediate. It painted a picture of a government desperate to provoke confrontation for political leverage. As one analyst on Sky News put it, Putin didn't just win the information war. He hijacked Britain's credibility in front of the world. And as night fell over London, a single headline summed up the nation's mood. Starmer's silence is louder than Putin's threats. Because for all the fiery speeches and reassurances, one truth remained. Britain had been blindsided, its prime minister exposed, and its global image shattered, a prime minister cornered, a global leader unafraid to play hardball, and a nation forced to face the cost of its own overreach. Did Putin just outsmart Britain? Or did Starmer walk straight into a trap? Was this a show of power, or the first move in a much bigger geopolitical game? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked Westminster, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next could change the balance of world politics forever. The stage is set, the players are known, and the next move will define history.